the tax changes are coming up in the budget. Now, there's two budgets we want to focus on at the moment. The upcoming UK budget, how are the UK government going to raise enough tax for them to spend? And the Cyprus budget, how are they going to go forward? We've been compliant with international tax regulation as a jurisdiction and offer tax expats living and working abroad in Cyprus. This is what we want to look at and to see, is Cyprus a viable alternative to the UK at the moment? Specifically, we're looking at pensions at the moment from two angles: from the state pension perspective and from the private pension perspective, because the UK taxman has got his claws into you. What we're seeing in the UK at the moment is a government that's clawing around to find a way to fund its promise commitments. The health service, public sector unions are going on strike because they want more pay. Everybody wants pay, but to pay public sector workers, the money has to come from taxpayers. Taxpayers have got a spending commitment that they need to meet. They need to meet the borrowing requirement. The government can keep borrowing money, but then it has to pay some back with interest. That comes from taxpayers' funds as well. So the government needs to have a commitment to find a way to raise money in the future. Now, God forbid that they ever reduce personal allowances, but they've got them frozen. They're committed to freezing the personal allowances for the next 5 years. So where are they going to get the extra money from? They put up capital gains tax by 80% in their budget of 24. So where are they going to do that? Well, the big knocking on the door is to do with inheritance tax. State pensions have, sorry, not state pensions, but public service pensions have now been labelled under the inheritance tax banner as well. And inheritance tax is scoped to increase a lot of taxation in the future. So in the future years, a government can say we're going to get more tax from inheritance when people die, and we've got an aging population and they're going to die anyway. So sometime in the next 30 years, the baby boomers are going to go away, and using that forecast of future inheritance tax income predictions, the government can then go out and borrow more money at taxpayers' expense. So that's a potential liability you've got in the UK. So what can you do about that? If you've been out at work and you've been saving money into your pension scheme, the government's been very generous to allow you tax relief on that money going in, and for generally a pension fund to be a tax-free investment portfolio. But those tax reliefs have reduced and reduced over the years, and now it's getting to the point that where they want something back. So inheritance tax from April 26 is now going to fall under inheritance tax claims. Now, a lot of people might say, well, inheritance tax is not for me. So let's see why those people think inheritance tax is not for me. If your family home is worth £325,000 and that's your main asset and you die, there's no inheritance tax on that. Okay. If you've got another 100,000 in savings after the family home, then potentially there's a 40% inheritance tax on that, £40,000. So that's not too bad. If you have a house that's not wildly expensive over the 325,000 mark, with your savings, you may at the moment not be in the pension inheritance tax arena. However, two things defer that. One is that on first death, inheritance tax is not charged on a married couple. That could change. Why would a government that needs tax and needs tax sooner not charge inheritance tax on first death rather than second death on the husband's share of the property as a potential initial payment of inheritance tax prior to second death? So that's one scope that they've got. That wouldn't mean people are paying more tax today, but would mean people paying more tax as each person dies over the next 30 years. But let's look at the broader scope. As soon as you bring pension funds into inheritance tax, it ups the ante. So if you've got a pension fund where you let's say an average pension annuity rate is 5% at the moment. So for every £400,000 pension fund, you've got a £20,000 pension. So that's how much your pension is worth, £400,000. It uses up the nil rate allowance. Okay, so that means two things. It means that your 20,000 is going to get income tax in the UK at 20% over the personal threshold, which is frozen. Plus, when you die, you're going to get a 40% inheritance tax. Up until now, you could leave that tax-free to your family and beneficiaries. Not anymore. It's inherited tax, 40%. And you might say that's fair, um, and I'm not saying it's not unfair, but if it's a balancing out, if it's a new way, then it's a new tax. And what can you do to plan with that? If you've got a, a self-invested pension plan, you're not part of a defined benefit scheme, such as the civil service pensions. If you've got that personal self-invested pension scheme, then once you reach the age of 55 and above, you can potentially withdraw. Okay. Now, if you did that in the UK and you drew your 400,000 pension fund in the UK age 55, you've got a 45% tax liability as a high rate taxpayer. So that doesn't work. If you relocate abroad, then and you've got a double taxation treaty and the pension is taxed in that new jurisdiction, then potentially you're going to pay the tax in that new jurisdiction. Now, there are some jurisdictions that have 0%, 10%, 15%. Cyprus are committing into 26 to a pension tax rate on overseas pensions of 5%. It's been that way for more than 25 years, and it will continue that way in 2026. So that is a commitment to the Cypriot government. So anybody that's over 55 with a self-invested pension scheme could relocate to Cyprus um, to live. Once they're living in Cyprus, register their pension scheme as a Cyprus source of income and pay the 5%. You can withdraw the £400,000 and pay 5% tax. Now that's 5% tax you're paying now that you don't have to pay if you don't draw it, but it's 40% tax that you don't pay when you die, whenever that might be. And it could be £1 million pension fund, it can be £10 million pension fund. The tax on an overseas pension as a Cyprus tax resident is still only 5%. Join us, living and working abroad in Cyprus. We can help you. As a resident, as a tax resident, you pay 5% on your pension funds over 55 that you withdraw from the UK. And you can then protect that money long term from inheritance tax in the UK. For more information and guidance, contact us at poetpartnership.com. But there's a bit more. What if the government take additional action and additional steps to do that? Now, at the moment, bear in mind that if you've got a government service pension scheme, if you're with the civil service or the National Health Service or any government fund or the forces, any government funded pension is taxed in the UK. You cannot move that pension abroad. Now that is a change that's happened in the last 10 years as the British government has sought to claim more tax. Okay. Now, at the moment, when you don't have a public service pension, you can relocate that pension abroad and have it taxed in another jurisdiction. But what if a tax-hungry government in the UK decides in a November 25 budget to say with immediate effect all self-invested personal pensions cannot be relocated abroad? Why would they do that? Who knows, other than to collect extra tax. But it is something with a majority government that they could do. I've got no notion that they're going to do it. I've got no hearsay. I'm just saying that they changed the law in the last 5 years to say that your civil service pension, you can't now go to live in Cyprus or anywhere else around the world and have your pension taxed abroad. You have to pay the highest marginal rate of UK tax of up to 45% income tax. Your defined pension dies with you, so you don't get any fund back, although you might get a widow's pension. Why not tighten the tax grip on a self-invested personal pension to say you can't transport that abroad as well, and therefore it's always going to be liable to UK tax. So it's 40% inheritance tax if you die, and up to 45% income tax if you're living with that pension in the UK. For more information and guidance on your options, contact us at partnership.com to protect your pension pot from income tax and inheritance tax into your long, happy, and healthy retirement. We've already seen that the government has frozen allowances for a considerable period into the future. During the rest of this decade, the allowances are not going to be taxed. And what we're seeing now is even people on basic state pensions are beginning to fall into the tax net with their allowances. And catching a cough. What can you do about that? Why would you do something about that? Have in mind that the state pension can be quite a wonderful thing. If you're living and working abroad in another jurisdiction, there may be a state pension benefit in that jurisdiction as well. It may well be possible that you could accrue, as a British expat living and working abroad, a UK state pension as well as your local state pension. And there's no reason why you can't have two pension schemes. How's that done? You have to save. You have to save into the pension scheme. Now, if you're living and working abroad and you've got a UK state pension scheme in a reciprocal country, you can then relocate that pension overseas. But if you haven't, and you've got no other pension income in the UK, conveniently the state pension up until now has generally been below the personal allowance. With frozen personal allowances, the state pension is now creeping into a taxable entity, and it enables the government to track people with low pension incomes living and working abroad to see if there's any additional tax that they want to pay. But what you need to do is be able to maximise your pension. So if you're living and working abroad, whether it's for 2 or 3 years, or whether it's in the long term, consider paying national insurance contributions. Again, there's some tax creep here where the government have tried to change the rules over the last few years. And I'm talking about the governments over the last 25 years. We're not pointing a finger at any particular government. Each one of them consistently over the last 25 years has increased the rules and regulations to tighten up and claim more tax for more government spending. So they're also tightening. Essentially, there's a voluntary rate of national insurance contribution you can pay if you're not working in the UK, and that it's about £900 a year. But if you pay that rate, you'll get your state pension money back. The return on the investment is in 3 years, so it is always going to be a good investment for you to make that 900 a year. If your circumstances are different, Class 2 is still available. Generally, they're trying to make it unavailable, but it is technically still available. So if you're in the UK in a caring position or low income, you can still play Class 2 in the UK. But if you're living and working abroad on a short-term contract, you can play Class 2 as well. And then you're paying under 300 a year. So for every year's contribution you make, you get your money back at state retirement age. Plus, if you're in the right jurisdiction, which has got its own state pension, and you're living and working and paying national social insurance in that country, you could end up with two state pensions. So instead of complicating your life with a self-invested pension that's going to get taxed with inheritance tax and income tax, you could just go for a state pension strategy, which at least would give you a minimum income in up to 2 countries where you've been working during your career. As a British citizen, you can always make voluntary contributions into the UK. So any expat Brit can have a UK state pension as long as you paid a minimum of 10 years. Now, in any 1 year, you can go back another 6 years, so you can catch up 7 years. So anybody that's been living and working abroad for the last 5, 6, 7 years can catch up with their national insurance contribution before they reach the state retirement age, and get them for every £300 for every year that they contribute onto their state pension. So it's a good investment, especially if you're living abroad, retired early, or working a second contract, second career abroad. You've got a fairly full history in the UK. Top it up with your national insurance contributions. For more information and guidance on that, contact us at productpartnership.com. Having said all that, in addition to all that, there's more. Just the update on the 10-year catch-up that was introduced. Again, over the last 25 years, constant changes trying to reduce the uh, options and availabilities on national insurance, make it harder, make sure people are paying more to get less. But when they did change the state pension to a new flat rate basic pension in 2006, they introduced the option to catch up for up to 10 years. Anybody who put in an application before April 2025 to catch up the missing 10 years as an expat, that's potentially 16, 17 years in catch up. Those applications are still going to be honoured according to the UK tax authorities. We're still to hear from many of our clients, and we're chasing them every month to get some straight answers. But the position at the moment is that they won't accept any more applications to catch up on the 10-year offer that expired April 25. But if your application is in, then they will honour that application and allow you to make up those missing years if you're an expat living and working abroad. The overall message for this Living and Working Abroad show is, if you're an expat living and working abroad on a short-term contract or a long-term contract, contact us at productpartnership.com to top up your national insurance pension contribution and allow you to top up your pension profitably to secure minimum incomes in retirement. If you've got a self-invested personal pension scheme over 55, as a resident in Cyprus, you could pay a maximum of 5% on that pension fund, get the money out, get it away from inheritance tax and UK income tax at 40 and 45%. For more information and guidance, contact us at productpartnership.com. Thanks a lot for listening, and we'll see you again next time.